Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Mount Juliet Board of Commissioners. We are here to have a public hearing. We have two items on the public hearing. I'll read those in. The first one is to amend Part B of the Unified Development Code of the City of Mount Juliet, Tennessee, known as Zoning Regulations Ordinance 2001-29, adopted October 8th, 2001, as amended by amending Section 3-103-37A, Commercial Activities, Entertainment, and Amusement Services, to remove the sitting capacity restrictions on entertainment and amusement services. The second item is to rezone from Wilson County R1 to RS30 PUD and annex into the corporate boundaries of the City of Mount Juliet approximately 17.14 acres, property known as Whispering Meadows, located at 0 Ritter Drive, map 76, parcel 21.02, and located within the city's urban growth boundary, and to adopt a preliminary master development plan. The public is invited to attend and comment. If you have any comments on these two items, I'll open the floor. If not, we will close the public hearing. We'll reconvene for the regular meeting at 6:30. We'll have citizen comments there, and you are more than welcome to address us on any comment or topic of your choice at that point pursuant to city business. All right, seeing none for the public hearing, we'll close the public hearing and we'll reconvene at 6:30. Good evening. It's the 28th day of the 10th month of the 2024. We have a quorum present, so I'll call the meeting of the Board of Commissioners to order. I'll just thank you for coming out tonight. We invite everybody to participate in this meeting. We'll start off with our first item tonight, which is the setting of the agenda. I would like to start off by removing two items. If there's no objection to removing 12A and 12B, I believe the applicant is going to request deferral, so I'd prefer to remove it at this point right now and just take it off the agenda. And I'm getting a head shake in the affirmative. And I would also like to add 12K and 12N to the consent agenda. Is there any objections? All right, hearing none, we'll set the agenda with the changes as stated. I apologize. We'll set the agenda, and then I also have one other item, which is we have a land use for 12M, the item which is, what's the proper name, known as Golden Bear Place. This was publicly noticed, but it was not on the agenda, so we are covered from the public notice standpoint of it. And if there's no objections, I'll just read the land use with the PUD. You should have copies on the table. All right. Hearing no objections, we will add that as, I'll call it 12MA. All right, we have a 200-page plus packet. So if you would like to follow along, we have packets in the basket here. There's also packets available online if you'd like to follow along and you're watching online. And with that, our next item is our invocation and pledge of allegiance. I'd like to ask Mr. Beasley, if you would please lead us in the invocation and pledge.
Thank you, Mayor. If y'all will, please stand with me. Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for bringing us here together. We ask that you oversee our decisions with this agenda currently tonight. May we lean on your wisdom with these important steps in front of us. Lord, we thank you for our elected body, their sacrifice, their service, their talents to our city. We give special thanks to our fire and police departments as well, Lord. You have blessed us with great departments, with great leadership that work tirelessly to continue to keep our city safe. Lord, may we not take them for granted, and we thank you for that. We also ask that you be with our city management and staff and our inner workings of our city, Lord. May we be great ambassadors and great representations of not only our job, not only you, but our city as well. We give you the honor, the praise, the glory, and the thanksgiving. It's in your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Beasley. Next item is the approval of minutes. We have one from our September 23rd meeting and the other one from the October 2nd meeting from this month. Is there any changes? All right, seeing no changes, if we will adopt these by consent, there's no objections. Two items are adopted. Next item is citizen comments. This is the point within the meeting. If you have any comments for the Board of Commissioners, we'd invite you to come forward to the podium, give your name and address for the record. Just ask you to keep the items pertaining to stuff with the city itself, and just direct any comments or questions to myself. We're under no obligation to answer questions from the table, but we may instruct a staff member to get with you as well. So we have that option. But if you would like to, I'll open the floor to citizen comments, and I'd ask you to give your name and address for the record, and you'll be recognized for 3 minutes. Come forward.
My name's Clarence Head, 200 Maple Way. And there was a proposal to take 448 Bass Lane and to annex it into the city. You guys voted it down 7-0. I wholeheartedly agree. our whole subdivision, there's concerns that there's caves and sinkholes throughout the entire thing. I've done some research on it. I've contacted state geologist Ron Clendenin. He suggested that in our area that possibly the firm that wants to build there to get a geotechnical engineering team to do some subsurface investigation to see how bad it is. There's 6 or 7 that we know of right now. I had a couple more that were shown to me while I was actually talking to the previous HOA president. And so I started looking up some of those teams, and he reminded me, oh, by the way, the Corvette Museum had no idea it was coming, and it happened. And so my concern is with that. Also concerned is I found errors on the submittal documents, the maps that were used for 448 Bass Lane. The high power lines weren't there. They showed the site on the opposite side of Bass Lane, not on the proper side. And there's all kinds of problems with that. What we're also seeing is that the blasting that's going on in Tomlinson Point right now, we're having people complain to me saying, our houses are shaking, our dishes are shaking. And so I started looking into the Tennessee law, and it says that the code for the blasting standards is for the state is 140 decibels, but the Code of Federal Regulations doesn't allow anything over 133. So there's a problem with the state, and I think this the fire marshal needs to be notified. I'm not sure if it's the city's responsibility or if it's a mayor's responsibility, but there's a problem with that. And then also some of the research I've done is that looking at where the power lines are in relationship to the proposal for the land, the power lines go right through a majority of the homes that were going to be built there. And so I know that they want to decline it and probably take it to the county. But I'm here to tell them, if they're here tonight, that we're going to fight this because there's a problem in that area. It used to be a nursery, and they didn't allow to build homes in there. And when they first originally allowed the homes to be built there, there was some collusion between some people. I don't know how it is, but they explained it to me at the subdivision and said that they just got it passed and they allowed the homes to be built. So I think that it's imperative the city looks at all of that. And then we're also having a problem because of the 2 subdivisions that are rebuilding off Beckwith, Bradshaw and also Chandler Point, that all of the traffic is now cutting through our subdivision, all these big pieces of machinery. They're hitting the trees, busting branches and everything because they don't want to wait in line. And they also know that if they're going to make a left-hand turn to go down Beckwith Road, it's a very sharp turn. It takes immediate dip of about 100 feet up and down. And instead of doing that, they're cutting through our subdivision, with kids and everything out there, people walking their dogs. These guys are hauling through there. So I see it as a problem. I might ask to have speed bumps put in or something like that.
All right. Well, thank you, sir, for your comments. That is definitely one that's considered on the agenda tonight, and I don't think they are in favor of us passing it and annexing at the city. But thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else for the Board of Commissioners for citizen comments? All right. Seeing none, I'll close citizen comments, and we'll move on to commissioner comments and reports. Commissioner Justice, you are recognized for 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you. First of all, I apologize. I came in and not dressed. I don't think appropriately, but I've been out at the polls all day today. Real quick, I want to thank Parks Department, PD, Police Department, and any and all of those that participated in the Halloween in the park. It was a great turnout, and as normal, we had great representation from our police department, and I believe there were some firefighters that were there as well. So I want to thank everybody that came out and participated in that. It was a really great time. Mayor, I'm going to take just a brief. We had a meeting today, the Mount Juliet Safe Streets survey that I'm on that committee, on that steering committee. We met today, and there was some information that they gave us that I thought was interesting. First of all, And I will say that this is probably a direct correlation to the fact that we've got a communications director that is probably second to none, Justin Beasley. They said that they had done other surveys a lot like ours. And Todd, I'm going to ask you maybe to help me out with some of this, if you remember. But what they were talking about the number of surveys that were received through a community and the other 9 or 10 that they had participated in. And generally the other communities were around 200 surveys that were returned back to the city for consideration. In our case, there were 587, by far the highest number that they had found and seen that were turned back into the city. 97% of those lived in or within 1 mile of Mount Juliet. 98% drive alone by car. 55% of those walk or bike for exercise. And 41% felt that Mount Juliet streets are completely safe. 21% of those were neutral. So a total of 62% with an upward trend as far as the safety that they felt comfortable with it through the survey. There were 403 intersections that were of concern, or 403 of those identified intersections that were of concern. I will tell you, one of those that I looked at when I was worried about was the Lebanon Road and Benders Ferry Road intersections, because of how much we've had to work to try and get that through and get TDOT to help us with it. But there were only 21 actually that were returned, identifying that as a particular, in my district, area of concern. Once again, the information that they came back with just initially kind of led us all to the same consensus, and that was that the people of Mount Juliet, as they drive through Mount Juliet, feel safe. And they attribute a lot of that to the police and fire presence and response times. So another shout out, not from us, from the people that actually responded to that survey, was that their presence of the police and fire were what made them feel safe as they drive through the city of Mount Juliet. Another statistic I thought was very interesting: 82% of the traffic on North Mount Juliet Road, and I think they identified it as 82% of the traffic on North Mount Juliet Road were not city residents. And I think many of you have heard me say that, some of the areas that I have seen that were of concern was the fact that we had 15 to 18,000 people coming from Rutherford County and over in the Antioch area, crossing the Hobson Pike Bridge into Mount Juliet so they can stay away from the I-24 roadblock that they've got going into Nashville from those areas. And now we've identified another issue with I-40 at Highway 109, where people are having a hard time getting off at the exit. So now they're coming down Mount Juliet Road to Lebanon Road and turning right, going to Lebanon and to Gallatin. I had wondered why I was getting numerous complaints about people going down Benders Ferry Road. And it turns out what they're doing is they're going down Benders Ferry Road to avoid the other traffic on Lebanon Road and come out on Burton Road onto Highway 109 and then going over into Gallatin. So again, 82% of that traffic on Mount Juliet Road they're not Mount Juliet folks. So I thought that was interesting. Other than that, I don't have anything else, Mayor. That concludes my report.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, we will recognize Vice Mayor Trevette.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome everybody here tonight, and also the folks that are online. Appreciate everybody participating. Congratulations to Sergeant Sean Ronan. I hope I pronounced the last name. He was just, I guess, was given the prestigious FBI LEDA Award. So that was pretty cool for our first responders. And also would like to thank him and also all the other first responders that also participated in the Halloween in the Park. I was not able to make it. We had a community event, so it was great to see our neighbors out at that one, first time also. So it was slight conflict there, but I heard it was a great event, and I heard the staff and the first responders did a great job, and we had a big outpour of our city there. So it's always great to see our neighbors and all of them getting together. I want to wish the best for this coming week. We've got 2 hometown teams playing for Mount Juliet and Green Hills. I know the mayor's gonna be talking about it, but it's always great. Me and my family, we usually go every Friday night just to go celebrate all of the students. And this week coming up, it's going to be on another holiday, but it's going to be a good time. So I wish the best for all the players, that they have a great competitive game and they're all safe during this, because I know they're going to be playing hard. Would also like to remind some folks as we start getting into the fall season about safety. As we move into the time change, our students are going to be getting off those buses a little bit, sometimes when it gets darker. So please be aware, talk to the new drivers. My daughter's one of them. So I always like to talk about safety with her and any other student that's going to be heading home, and they kind of get distracted. So please make sure we talk about safety as the kids are getting off the school bus with this new time change. And most important, don't forget to vote. I'm telling you, it's our civil duty. It's something that we all, well, not all of us, but most of us take it, and we appreciate what freedoms that we do have. And just don't forget to vote. And Mayor, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we'll recognize Commissioner Mullally for her report comments. Recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you. I don't really have a report. I'm 3 days out of surgery, so not all here. I try to get my newsletter out the first, and so I'm gonna have one hand to work on. So, but I'm gonna be working on it. I hope to at least send it out by the end of the weekend. So like Vice Mayor said, please vote. If you haven't voted already, please make the effort to early vote and, do your duty. I guess that was all I had. I guess that's what is it.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. My remarks, I'll just say tomorrow, I think it's your last day to request an absentee ballot if you're so inclined to use one. Early voting ends on Thursday. We have election on Tuesday of next week. I'll just say best of luck to everybody who's on the ballots. Encourage everybody to vote as others have as well. Just get out there. You got Charlie Daniels, got a number of places around town to vote on election day. But I also got some calls about Halloween. Unfortunately, as mayor, that's not one of my duties that I control the date Halloween falls on or the day which it's celebrated. I would encourage you to celebrate it anytime you want. You can even celebrate it year round, as long as that doesn't get you in trouble with your HOA, depending on how you celebrate. But anyway. Also, I don't have any control over the scheduling of the dates of which football games are played, but I would invite you out just the same to the Mayor's Cup, which will be on this Thursday, where we have 2 undefeated teams. The Green Hill Hawks and the Mount Juliet Bears both have a record of 9-0. Unfortunately, someone that night will not be undefeated any longer. I don't think they allow ties in high school ball, but someone will not be undefeated, but they are playing for, I guess when it comes to the division there, all the marbles for the outright winner on that. Also, we have a press conference that both those schools are going to be recognized out at Corner Pub tomorrow evening at 6:30. I believe it kicks off. So come out, celebrate 2 outstanding football programs, get a little candy, trick or treat along the way. I don't control the weather either, so don't blame me on that. But just stay safe. Keep an eye on those kids. Everybody enjoy, have a good time, be responsible, and that's all I can hope for. And I appreciate everything that you do to make Mount Juliet the city it is. With that, I'll quit rambling and recognize our city manager for his 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Thanks, everybody, for coming out tonight and participating in our process. Those watching home that couldn't be here, hope everybody had an awesome weekend. First and foremost, I want to thank all the poll workers who have been working. It's been like a record year every time that you went down to the park or the polling station. So all those sweet and kind people that work there and their patience and helping people through the voting process. There's a lot of new voters. So a lot of times there's people there that's never voted. So just good people. I appreciate them being there. Most importantly, I also want to talk about shopping local and supporting local businesses. One of the things that the commission's aware of that we get regularly is people and citizens asking for particular businesses to come to town. So I just want to let you know that we're working hard and we listen to those requests and have some new businesses that we'd like to mention tonight. One of those couldn't come at a better time, and it's Honey Baked Ham. Honey Baked Ham, we've been trying to get in Mount Jewett for a long time, and if everybody knows, around Thanksgiving and Christmas and the holidays, so they've opened up here on Mount Jewett Road. Miss Jennifer, what's the name of the center again? It's Robinson Crossing. Robinson Crossing, which if you're familiar with that, it's right across the street from Valley Center. And they just opened up, and I know they'd love to have your support and patronage, and we're happy to have them here. Another new business will be going in the old PDK kitchen, if you're familiar with that, over in the Providence area. I know everybody loves chicken. There's a lot of chicken places in Mount Jewett, but we don't really have a lot of hot chicken places. So there's a new place called BJ's Hot Chicken that's going in the old PDK location over in the Providence area. And so I think that'll be a big hit. Kiki's will be going in. It's a breakfast place on Highway 70. I think there's another Chipotle. I always lose my thought on that. Andy's Frozen Custard, and Sprouts will be doing their groundbreaking here soon, along with the Texas Roadhouse over on Golden Bear. So that's just a few of the businesses. The reason I mentioned those is, as everybody knows from Hurricanes Helene and also Milton, that there's a lot of people in East Tennessee and other places. And I want to thank the people that, and from this particular part of the country in Middle Tennessee and Mount Jewett, that have spent so much time going to those areas and helping those people. But what drives the resources for emergency services and all city services in Mount Jewett is shopping in your local community. That's what operates. It's what the city operates off of. And most cities own sales tax. So thank you to the citizens of Mount Jewett for being such good patroners of your local, patronizers of your local businesses. I really do appreciate that. And I know the businesses do. And we're going to continue to work hard to bring the other businesses that everybody wants here. So, Mayor, that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. All right, we'll move into the business portion of the agenda. We'll start with 10A, an ordinance amending Part B of the Unified Development Code of the City of Mount Juliet, Tennessee, known as the Zoning Regulations Ordinance 2001-29, adopted October 8, 2001, as amended by amending Section 3-103-37A, Commercial Activities, Entertainment, and Amusement Services to remove the seating capacity restrictions on entertainment and amusement services. Have a motion? Second. Any questions or comments? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? 10A carries. Next item is our consent agenda. I'll start by reading the consent. 11A, a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign the certificate of compliance for MAPCO Express LLC, MAPCO location 829 at 126 North Mount Juliet Road, Mount Juliet, Tennessee, to sell wine. The second item is a resolution authorizing the execution of a contract between the city of Mount Juliet and Collins Construction for the renovation of the new Parks Annex building. 11C is a resolution authorizing the execution of a contract for the purchase of a new aerial apparatus for the fire department. 11D is a resolution of the city of Mount Juliet, Tennessee, to authorize the city manager to execute an agreement for the agreements by and between the city of Mount Juliet for the parent company for paving services. 11E is a resolution declaring the city of Mount Juliet Police Department seized vehicles as surplus to be disposed of at Gov Deals auction. 11F is a resolution declaring the city of Mount Juliet, Tennessee property in various departments as surplus to be disposed of at Gov Deals auctions. 11G is a resolution approving the award of a professional services agreement and contract for the stormwater utility engineering services between CDM Smith and the city of Mount Juliet, Tennessee, and authorizing the mayor to sign an agreement. The next item is 12K, an ordinance to reconsider the ordinance 2014-05, which established the zoning and PUD overlay for the Nicholsville PUD, remove the requirement for the perimeter transition protected buffer. And then 12N is an ordinance authorizing the abandonment of a portion of the existing right-of-way of Rutland Drive near Golden Bear Gateway. Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda as carries. So 12A and B were removed from the agenda, which brings us to 12C. An ordinance to annex into the corporate boundaries of the city of Mount Juliet, Tennessee, approximately 25.94 acres property located at 448 Bass Lane, map 55, parcel 95, and located within the city's urban growth boundary. Is there a motion? I'll make the motion. Is there a second on this? Second. The item's on the table. I have no plans to support this. Is there any other comments on this? Sure.
First of all,
Commissioner Justice.
thank you,
recognized.
Mayor. That your motion and my second of that motion are not supporting the development or anything that has to do with development. I also I want to be clear on something that I'm made clear on something, if I could. I want to know if I can find out from somebody what us not approving this, though, what impact that might have on somebody else coming in just down the road, another larger development. Can somebody?
John, is that something you can help us with? What are the ramifications of? I know this is procedural. Ms. Hamlin?
Well, I would like to input the main reason, not only for plan of services, that we cannot get sewer emergency services out to this location. The project that you're speaking of, we would be able to provide sewer to that development. And we would be working with our fire department and police to make sure that we could service them with emergency services.
Okay.
As they would have access through Beckwith, whereas this one, you have to go all the way down Lebanon Road and to turn onto.
I just want to make sure we
Yes,
weren't
sir.
setting ourselves up
No.
later on with something. So
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's simple. It's just, it's going to extend emergency services. You'd have to drive through an unincorporated portion of the city to get to it. So that's, if anyone questions my thinking on this, but, and I only motion to get this on the agenda, get this on the table so I can vote in the negative on this, so it's not ambiguous and doesn't get brought back. So that's my thing. Any other questions or comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
No.
Nay. Any abstentions? 12C does fail by a vote of 0-4, so that will not be annexed. Next item is 12B, an ordinance to annex into the corporate boundaries of the city of Mount Juliet, approximately 5 acres of property located at 4009 Beckwith Road, map 76, parcel 21.02, and located within the city's urban growth boundary. Is there any objection to reading D and E at the same time? Here, no objections. We'll read E as well. An ordinance to rezone the property located at 4009 Beckwith Road, map 78, parcel 2102, from Wilson County R1 to CI, commercial interchange. Is there a motion for those two? Have a motion?
Second.
Have a second. Any questions or comments on 12D and E? All in favor of 12D and E, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Those both pass. The next item is 12F, an ordinance. An ordinance for a major amendment to the preliminary master development plan for the Tomlinson Point Planned Unit Development PUD being located at 2844 Curd Road, map 54, parcel 738182.02 in the city of Mount Juliet, Wilson County, Tennessee.
motion.
Second.
Motion is second. The item's on the table. Any questions or comments on this? Commissioner Mullally.
Just to confirm, on page 142, it talked about the history being the subdivision is zoned RS15 PUD and originally approved includes 88 acres for 192 lots. But yet the current zoning is RS40. So I just want to make sure this will go through as the recommended zoning of RS20. Is that right?
Kenny's time's up. Sorry, Commissioner. John, can you help us with that one?
What was the question? This phase will be RS20. They meet the density for RS20, so they don't need to go any higher.
Okay, that's what I wanted to be sure, because in the history, it talked about RS 15.
The rest of the PUD is RS15 because it's more that those phases are more dense and they need the RS15 zoning to catch that density. But this phase, if you take it alone, it doesn't exceed the RS20 max density. So if you gave them an RS15, it would be unnecessary because that allows more density than they're asking for.
Right, okay, so base zoning RS 20 PUD.
Any other questions or comments before we vote? Commissioner
This is-
Justice.
Thank you. It's first reading on this. And talking to the development over there, I talked to them about an amount of money that they would be making, and they were willing to voluntarily contribute. When the original piece went through, I think it was $2,500 per lot. There was a contribution, and because there are some infrastructure challenges over there that they're willing to help out with, the amount that they are willing to add would be $7,500 for the additional lots, which would be approximately $46,000, I think, for the number that we're talking about. When it's all said and done, the amount to finish, I think they said it was approximately 1.2 million that's going into 1.3 that was going into the infrastructure of that area and to be used in that area. The average, based on the earlier approval of the lots, would be $5,854, I think. So what I'd like to do, if we could, at this point, to go ahead and amend this by saying that there would be a $7,500 per lot voluntary contribution.
For the additional lots or for the entire development?
No, just for the additional lots.
And your count on those?
So I'm going, is it 28 lots?
So $7,500 per lot for the additional 28.
Yes, sir.
That's no changes to the previous.
Correct.
Okay. All right, if that's your motion, $7,500 per lot for the additional 28 lots, I'll second that. Any questions or comments on Commissioner Justice's motion?
Mayor, if I might add to that, there was a note that they had asked if we could put this in here for this to be paid prior to the recording of the Phase 7 recorded plat. So if you don't mind,
Don't mind.
we would add that to that amendment, please.
Any concerns from staff on that? Okay. That's
I just wanted to add, with the city attorney's guidance, that contribution be paid to Public Works and Engineering at the signing of the final plat if they're in agreement with doing it that way.
Do you have a problem with that, Commissioner?
No, sir.
Public Works and Engineering. It's a $7,500 per additional lot for the 28 lots to be paid prior to the recording of Phase 7 to Public Works and Engineering.
Yes.
All good?
Yes, sir.
All right, any questions or comments on the amendment? All right, all in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Back on 12F as once amended. Any other questions or comments before we vote? All right, all in favor of 12F as once amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? 12F carries. Is there any objection to reading 12G and H together? All right, I'll read them both. 12G is an ordinance to repeal ordinance 2015-09 and ordinance 2016-2 in their entirety to encourage hotel development 12H is an ordinance to amend Part B of the Unified Development Code of the City of Mount Juliet, Tennessee, known as the Zoning Regulations, Ordinance 2001-29, adopted October 8, 2001, as amended to define hotels and motels in Section 6102, uses and structures. Motion and a second from Commissioner Maley. Any questions, comments, or discussion on this? All right, all in favor of 12G and H on first reading signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Those two carry. 12I is an ordinance to rezone the property at 434 Nonneville Road, approximately 1.48 acres, map 53, parcel 53, from RS 40 to CNS.
Motion.
A motion. I'll second. Any questions or comments on 12I? Commissioner Lady.
So this is going to be heard at the Planning Commission in November. No, wait, wrong one, sorry. Wrong one. So do we not know the intention of this request, or do we? Well, strip center. So I have a question about the Senior Dog Sanctuary when they didn't get approved for their, what would be, I guess, commercial zoning. So I guess I just have a question of, because it's in the same area, right? It's not in the same area? Was that further up? Okay, okay.
Commissioner Justice.
This part of Nonneville Road is the part, I believe land use is actually commercial thoroughfare through there, if I'm not mistaken. Commercial neighborhood. And so that section that goes up until you get to where the old golf course was, any of that section, that's all in the city limits, and the road has been widened through that location. Once you get past that location, you go probably another quarter of a mile is the location where you're talking about. And that's outside, the road itself is outside of city limits. So this is totally different. Yes, no ma'am, it wasn't a land use amendment, no. Oh, I've slept since then, so don't ask me to remember that. I don't remember, but this particular piece is not a land use amendment.
Right,
The
this
land
one
use is
isn't.
already calling for it to be commercial.
Yeah.
But there's been somebody living in it up until just recently, probably the last year or so. And so they saw an opportunity to sell it, and this is what they're wanting to do. And so it fits the land use request.
Okay. I just want to make sure we're being fair, to the senior dog. So that was further up. Was that one going to require the land use? Because that didn't coincide, I don't think, with the, I don't remember.
I'm just asking to be recognized.
Anyone from staff who can answer that one?
Yes, ma'am. That is primarily residential that far down Nonneville Road, and they were asking for a land use plan amendment and a rezone at the
Okay.
time. But again, it's surrounded by residential, whereas this is more conducive to a commercial setting.
Okay. Okay. I just want to make sure.
I think John had something he wanted to add as well.
I was just gonna add, that was an animal use and they're not permitted adjacent to residential too, so that might have something to do with why it didn't happen either. Or as well, because you have.
But there were no animals there. That was just
Oh, that was the
administrative.
Office, yeah, that's right. Okay, never mind.
I thought it was across the street too. Across the street from this is what Sheila and
I was
I were
thi-
talking about, which was the cottages.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So that's further. I just want to make sure we're being fair across the board. Okay. That was all.
All right, any other questions or comments on 12I? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Right.
Any opposed? 12I carries. (12J), an ordinance to amend the preliminary master development plan for Beckwith Business Park, planned unit development being located at 5158 Beckwith Road, map 78, parcel 14, 13.01, 18 in the city of Mount Juliet. I'll second. So 12J is on the table. We ready to vote? We do have some requests here in this, and I know some of them were supported by staff and some of them not. I think too, in the ordinance under planning and zoning, we've got, I don't know, under 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16, the way it's written is, it just keeps saying planning commission positively recommends. Planning commission, are you looking for, I'm asking, I don't know if John or Jennifer, somebody, but are you looking for us to make an amendment here to adopt those? Because the way they're written here is very vague.
I guess that's the way to let you know what the planning commission thought of them.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's ultimately up to you.
It's supposed to be.
Or this board. They did positively recommend, I think, the ones we positively recommended, and then did not recommend the other two.
Yep. I see number 12, the planning commission did not positively recommend a waiver for 2 additional signs on the west elevation, power sports building for a total of 6 signs, total allowable square footage not to exceed.
Right.
So 12 was the one that was not recommended. 13, 14, 15, 16 received positive recommendations. Does staff have any concerns on those 4?
No.
Okay. Well, I'll make a motion that we adopt 13, 14, 15, and 16 under planning. Second. Questions or comments? All in favor of adopting 13, 14, 15, and 16, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition to that? All right, we're back on 12J as once amended. If there's no appetite for adopting 12, I do think that numbering will need to be fixed between now and second reading. I think staff can take care of that for us. Any other questions or comments on the PUD agreement? All right. All in favor of the PUD as once amended, 12J, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries. Next item is 12L, an ordinance to reconsider Public Works Condition 1B of Ordinance 2019-01, which established the zoning and PUD overlay for the Linwood Station to revise the requirements for the Greenway Trail to be constructed by the 35th Certificate of Occupancy. Motion? I'll second. Any questions or comments on 12L? I do have a note here from Mr. White where he was talking about the challenges of the Greenway and the railroad tracks, and I believe it was a conveyor system from the concrete plant. I believe I'm summarizing that correctly. I asked him, I said, well, it's a nice email. I said, would you please write me up an amendment to address this? So this is what he come back with. It says it was to install a 10-foot wide multi-use trail for the site to the train station to become an extension of the town center trail. The first phase of the improvement must be completed by the insert number certificate of occupancy. The second phase, which will connect the trail to the Linwood Station development at Clemens Road, shall be completed by insert number by certificate of occupancy. New business permits will be withheld thereafter if not completed. So he broke this apart for us in 2 phases, or 2 pieces to this. One is the completion of the town center trail by X number of COs, and the second piece to take the town center trail to the development itself by a second number of COs. And that was to capture the concerns as he expressed in the email dated October 24th. and I'm told has a verbal agreement from the developer for this. Commissioner Justice.
Since we've already had an issue where we've wanted to attach to the train station, and it turned out that we couldn't get permission from RJ Corman to do that, do we have to have anything from RJ Corman saying that they're willing to accept this?
In my mind, I saw this as the crossing occurring at the pre-existing crossings, but I'll defer to Shane on that.
I'm under the assumption that all of the crossings have been worked out with the railroad, with Director White and the developers.
I will tell you that I'm not under any assumptions when it comes to the railroad. I don't trust them based on the information that we've been given by them as to what we're going to have to do to get our road fixed out there. It's not their responsibility. I don't trust them. And so until I see something in writing, I'm not willing to sign off on something like this. I want to know that it's going to happen. It's another little piece of history here also. When they got Linwood Station approved, originally there was about $25,000 worth of sewer line that was going to be run to, at that time, what we were going to be over in Ethan Page Park, the Senior Citizen Center. That was one of the conditions. But now that that's no longer going to be, we've made other arrangements for the Senior Citizen Center. Is there anything they can do to, with that contribution? Is there another place that can go? And has that even been discussed? Because I'm not seeing that in any of the papers I've seen.
No, sir, it is not. Director White just texted me and said that they do have the permission from RJ Corman.
And we can get a copy of that, I assume, between now and first and second reading.
Yes, sir.
I'll save this amendment until second reading on this. I'm just throwing it out there for right now because this is a way to capture what was in the email. Really just wanted to get that out there for the body's consumption, I guess is the right way to say it. I'll forward this language on so that everybody has time to review it between the two meetings, but just wanted to bring it out there. We have a gentleman here at the podium. Can we get your name and address for the record?
My name is Jordan Clark. I'm with the developer. My address is 3020 Stansbury Lane, Franklin, Tennessee. If you have any questions, I'm here to help. When we got this approved several years ago, we were all understanding that there were easements in place for us to be able to do this work. As we've uncovered the details, walked the site with Matthew, we were intentionally going to go on the north side of the train tracks, but now we're going on the south side. So there's some complications, some crossings that we have to deal with where there's a bridge that has to get built. We're by no means trying to get out of doing this trail. We're fully committed to it. All we're asking for is relief on the first phase of the trail, which goes from the train station to our property. And just through all these details, we're trying to get it worked out. We were under the impression, we met with the staff earlier this year, that we could perhaps bond or do letter credit in lieu of, but we've since learned that we can't do that. So this is a way to get that all cleaned up so that we can actually do the work and do it in a timely fashion.
Commissioner Justice.
So were you with them during the original
Yes, sir.
approval process? Then you remember the dedicated line that was going to be ran to
Yes.
the area for the, is there something that you can do to,
Yeah.
has that been
We'll talk,
discussed?
yeah.
Or, I mean, did y'all just hope we forgot, or tell me about that?
I'd have to refresh my memory on it. I do remember that, but I couldn't remember if that was tied to the apartments that we didn't do. So there was something where we were committed to help doing some grading work or something for this center, but I'd have to refresh my notes. I'm sorry. I recall the discussion. I don't remember exactly what was approved.
And it was a line that ran to what was at that time the proposed
Right.
Senior Citizen Center to help them offset some of the costs that they were going to incur getting sewer to that location.
And we've run that, and it hasn't been a direct service, but we've run it across that frontage of that parcel now. Right, Shane?
It's a park.
Yes, sir. But we ran the line across there.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
that is-
because it was your direct location. And I get that. But I mean, now that it's not benefiting the Senior Citizen Center, is there another alternative that you've got to,
Sure.
Benefit the
we
Senior
can-
Citizen
We
Center.
can work that out with you. Yeah.
so if you could come up to something with staff between now and then, or something with, I don't know, I think that's Commissioner Hefner's district. Get with Commissioner Hefner and work something out to where there can be some benefit to the senior citizens
Absolutely, yeah.
to offset what they're not getting. So
Vice Mayor?
So, because I know Commissioner Hefner's not here tonight, but I believe he was reaching out to our city attorney in regards whether or not if this variance needs to go back to planning or are we just following procedures. So just want to make sure that that was covered before we take this to vote. So,
It has been covered. Jennifer and I have discussed it, and because we're just voting on this, basically the change in which CO it is, that's fine to vote on here. I believe that did Matt have plans for this?
He did.
Yep, and he approved those. So I think we're good.
okay, just want to make sure since he's not here, because I know that that was a discussion and wanted to make sure that we covered it.
It's my understanding that he has plans for the Greenway actually moving, so it will show on the PUD.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, all three phases have been approved.
All right. Commissioner Mullally?
All right, to make sure I understand, initially was the Greenway, the trail in one phase to be completed by the, what was it, the 35th or something? Was that initially in the phase one?
I wasn't here when the PUD came through the first time, but Director White told me that the intention was to have the Greenway running on the north side of the railroad tracks to the property frontage on Division Street, and then run the Greenway internally through Linwood Station that comes out at Clemens, correct?
Yes, it was to be run internally through our development.
But they ran into site challenges, which forced them to shift to the south side of the tracks, south side of Division Street. And they have to now run the Greenway or to Clemens Road and up to Clemens Road to their main entrance.
So now the trail is split into 2 or 3 phases.
We have 4 phases of design, and then each phase is tied with our master plan development to different, I guess they're building permits as well.
Correct. So the way the initial PUD read, it was to take by the 35th CO the Greenway from the train station to their property frontage on Division and then turn it up into the development in phases. But now that they're not carrying the Greenway through the development, that's what we're voting on here to codify exactly when the Greenway shall be completed. Because right now they've got to build everything by the 35th, but they did work it out with Public Works and Engineering with the verbal commitment to have the portion to their Division Street frontage to the 35th and then the rest of it by the 100th.
In the ordinance, it references the 91st.
That's what's being presented tonight.
Instead of the 100th.
The 100th was not, that was an agreement that we had with the developer outside of the ordinance. The CO triggers are for you guys to decide on when that Greenway shall be finished. It does not, the preference, as long as we get it done, but the CO triggers do need your attention. They're asking to get, clarify if I'm wrong, Mr. Clark, y'all want till the end of the first phase to get to the Division Street access, correct?
Correct.
The Division Street frontage.
Correct. The phase 1, correct.
So that's what's before you today. And we're also asking that you codify by what CO from their Division Street frontage all the way up to their Clemens Road access shall be completed as well, per the amendment that Director White wrote up that the mayor read.
All right. Can you help me with this map?
Sure.
It's so small. All right. So this is.
This would be phase 1, this green portion right here.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And then we're going to carry it down here.
Shane, question, and I may have it a little backwards on this. Is the amendment that Mr. White was proposing, was that that would replace what they're asking for now instead of just one set CO? It would be the verbal agreement being the 35th CO, and then for the first portion, the second portion being the 100th.
That's what it was. That's what we were working off of until the challenge presented itself today.
Gotcha. And that was what created the situation where we needed to split that apart.
Correct.
Okay.
The reason I'm confused is because in the ordinance, it says, it mentions the 35th and then it mentions the 91st in the ordinance. So that's
originally how it was presented, the 35th. We're trying to amend it to the 91st.
okay. So the 35th would go away.
Correct.
You're wanting a blanket agreement to just move to the 91st.
Yes, sir.
Yes. I think what Mr. White was recommending is completion of the first phase and then the second portion of that by the 100th CO. Am I speaking correctly?
I believe that is correct.
Okay.
Well, I would say that
To go-
the board was ultimately to decide the CO triggers, but I believe that is what he had in his exhibit.
To go ahead and install the 10-foot multi-use trail from the side of the train station, which is the extension of the town center trail, that being the first phase of it. And then come back around the 100th CO to connect that to Linwood. And that's where I think you're encountering the bridge.
The bridge that we have to build is in the first phase.
Gotcha.
And then it's the crossing of the railroad tracks, which is going to be another challenge right now. But the city's approved our designs. It's just getting nearer to approve our design, and they have to engineer that themselves. And they've had our plans for at least 2 months now.
Correct. And just for the record, I'm not opposed to what you're asking here in any way. I mean, it seems very reasonable to try to get this project done and not hold up the development itself. It's my understanding that you have made in a good faith effort to get all this. And it's just unforeseen supply chains, the supplier that's supplying the parts for the bridge, or maybe a prefab bridge. I'm not really sure which, but either way, regardless, you've made a good faith effort in this and just asking for relief to continue on and not try to get out of this project or this requirement in any way, but just to make it work. Yeah. Thanks, Shane.
Just to clarify, we were working off a verbal agreement with the developer to get to 35 and then 100. So staff doesn't really have a preference on when to get it done,
That's
as long
fine.
as we get the trail codified with the new alignment.
So a lot of this is about the new alignment as much as, can we have a drawing of that for second reading?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just to make sure that we're all on the same page.
We
and
can provide the approved plans just so that you've got
And-
the whole thing.
so we know exactly, there's no questions up here by the members of what we're voting for at that point. All right. Commissioner Justice.
A couple of things. First of all, we're talking about going on an agreement, verbal agreement. And I'm not sure what
Well, the conditions of approval mention the 35th CO. And the intent, like I explained earlier, was with the original alignment being on the north side of the tracks, getting that greenway from the train station to the property frontage on Division Street by the 35th CO. So we were working off of that basis and then having the rest of the trail go up to Clemens by the 100th.
Okay.
That second part from the Division Street property frontage to Clemens Road access where Linwood Station is located is not codified. It never was codified because the alignment changed after the PUD.
So there's also some roads that's being built. For instance, the piece that's coming down and it's deading into Clemens Road. Is that correct? It has not been opened yet. It's going to cut through all the way over to Hill Street.
That's correct.
So when is that anticipated to be completed?
I believe that's the 150th CO or the 100.
Oh, I'm not sure what the regulation is, but all those plans have been approved through the city. We're waiting on an ARAP right now from TDEC. Public notice should happen this week, I'm told, from TDEC. So then 30 days after that, we should be able to set up a pre-con to get phase 2 started.
Yeah, we've approved those plans for that
Okay.
work to be done.
There was a dedication of funds per unit that was approved during that. Do you remember what that was? None?
No, sir.
So y'all gave zero towards infrastructure?
No, sir.
I'm checking on that. I'm pulling up. the
Do we know
ordinance right
why
now.
that? How many homes is it? 300 homes? Do you remember that? I don't either.
It's been a little while since this was approved initially.
Yeah, it's been 6, 7 years.
It's 14. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong, 19.
How many lots? Where are they at now?
Our phase 1A plat just got recorded last month.
Maybe not. They just opened the flood back up.
I do not see a per lot contribution within the ordinance.
I'm sorry.
I do not see a per lot contribution approved in the ordinance.
Okay. Well, what we have on the table tonight is the changing of the CO in this to incorporate this bridge here until it can be adopted, until they have the components to construct the bridge. That's what we have on us at the table right now. I got no amendments on that. We're still on that. Is there anything that, I know I've heard some questions about the contributions, stuff that was promised to the Senior Citizen Center, some other stuff. I think we maybe need to get that stuff with everyone. But Commissioner Justice.
I just had a thought. If I'm not mistaken, that takes East Hill Street. Y'all are developing that street all the way through, or you're not, and bringing it out onto Clemens Road. Is that not correct?
Yes, that's part of our phase 2 plan.
Okay, I think that's the reason that we forewent the
We did
since
also,
they were
yeah,
doing that.
there are
road.
also turn lanes that we had to put in for our subdivision, and then also there are turn lanes going on from Clemens to Division. that
Well,
were
but
required.
again, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like that when the discussion that we had at that time was that you guys had to connect East Hill Street from Mount Juliet Road to Clemens Road.
By the 100th CO.
Okay. And that was the reason that we didn't charge you, since you were developing the entire road.
Yeah,
It would be and that was not an access lane or a street. That was actually a collector road, was it not? That's what it was. I remembered it now.
And just to summarize where these guys are at, the left turn lane on Clemens has been approved. The Greenway plans have been approved. The phase 2 plans with the East Hill connection have been approved. So a lot of that work has already been,
Okay.
the design has been finished. They just got to construct it.
Well, Commissioner, you have a better memory. I remember the requirement to connect the road through, but I didn't remember the conditions around that.
Yeah, that's what it was. Because I was sitting here trying to remember why we didn't grab a bunch of money from you guys to help with our infrastructure, but you're providing the infrastructure. It's just due to the amount of offsite improvements.
And the reason we were using the 100th CO, I'm reading it here now, Director White was confirmed this with me. There's condition number 6, that the sidewalk along Clemens Road in front of the Gonzalez property shall be installed by the developer by the 100th CO. So that's what we were working off of, was the basis of the existing triggers.
So what's the actual cost of that road going to be now
I'd have to defer
to
the
connect it and
developer.
link it to Clemens Road?
I don't have that number off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
A lot more than it was in 2019.
I was going to say, because that's, the Vice Mayor give me the number, 2.2 million. I think somewhere around there is what it would have cost it. And I think it's going to be probably more than that, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah. So
I just want to note, too, that if you're watching this, what we have before us is just a movement of a CO number for the requirement for the pedestrian bridge. The rest of the stuff was not captured in here, so that's why we're all having to ask questions on this, because this was voted on a little over 5 years ago, almost 5.5 years now. So
I would ask to make sure that, Mayor, if we could, that the developers come back in with a proposal for additional funds to help with the infrastructure. And I'm not talking road infrastructure. I'm talking about social infrastructure in this particular case.
well, being down one member, this won't go to consent normally anyway, so we'll have this back before us on
Okay.
second reading. Commissioner Mullally.
Can we not come up with a compromise between 35th and 91st, such as 60 or 60th or 75th?
Sure you can.
In other words, you can do anything you want to.
With 3 votes, yes. You can-
Right.
I mean,
Do we have?
do you have a number that you're looking to accomplish?
Um,
And I assume you
91
arrived
is
at-
how many lots are in phase one. That's what we were trying to tie it to, so it has some sense of relativity there.
So you're trying to get all those plotted as a unit.
As soon as we get this worked out, we're gonna start it, since it's all been approved, but it's just the bridge takes a long time to manufacture. They say 6 months, it could be 8 months. And so that's my ambiguity here on the phase one. And there's really only 2 providers for that type of bridge. And all we're doing is crossing a drainage swale that's, 15 feet wide. But the bridge is pretty considerable. I think it's 60 foot long, like a steadfast walking trail bridge.
So you've got 91 in the
Phase one.
phase one?
Yes.
Is there a reason why they asked for 100?
It's got,
I know, but they said 91st, but Matt's asking for 100.
Well, that's what I explained previously. There was a
Right.
condition number 6 where it tied
the road was
the
100.
sidewalk was supposed to cross in front of the property that is now Mount Juliet Elite Gymnastics by the 100th CO. So we were just working off of those triggers within the original ordinance, since they're neighboring property.
Yeah, as written, this ordinance has 91st under the first whereas at least. Yeah, and it's well under therefore be ordained. We got 91st in what's on the table here at the moment, which was the phase one.
Okay.
I'm fine with 91, but Vice Mayor.
Because I did talk to, I guess, a few folks over the phone this week. The developer is putting up 125% bond basically to hold it. Is that correct?
Not how this ordinance is reading.
So, I mean,
It's mine. I don't think that's how it's written.
it's not is how it's written now. Okay, so the verbal from versus what I was being told. So this is my biggest concern here is just making sure that these verbals are something in writing before the next reading, just because there's a lot of conversations going back and forth. I mean, just like you had mentioned, Shane, is that if there is any type of verbal discussion that we have it in writing for the next reading. And obviously if something, let's say, a developer comes in here and sells this property again, and then we got to start this, well, not start it all over, but we lose what was committed to. So as what Commissioner Justice was just saying, just earlier, Shane, you had mentioned that there was some verbal communications back and forth. We want to make sure we get that all in writing.
Right. That's what we were working off of the original ordinance. Within the CO triggers came from the original ordinance. The application is what we amended to work with the developer, but we can't. That's why we're here tonight. They wanted some relief on that existing CO trigger.
Okay. So I guess my only question is that if if it was discussed at 125% put down, just, to make sure that was a commitment.
Yeah,
Now-
I'm not opposed to posting the lyric or bond. That's not a problem.
That's going to be required anyways with the
Okay,
development.
so that's the only concern I just
We'll
got,
be
just in
doing
case
that
if it
anyways.
sells, somebody comes
Absolutely.
in, wants to sell
Absolutely.
something, and then all of a sudden magically we lose traction.
Yeah,
So,
that-
okay,
that they'll have to do that in either way.
that's good to know. Okay, thank you. Sorry for the confusion,
No.
just want to cross our Ts.
Yep. And you've got the list of concerns from Commissioner Justice there with that. So you've got that. Anything else? All right. All in favor of the ordinance on first reading, 12L, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries. The next item we have, if there's no objection, I'll read the land use with the PUD. And let's just, I'm going to call 12M and 12MA. The land use, which is an ordinance to amend the land use plan for the property known as Golden Bear Place PUD, located off Beckwith Road, map 78, a part of parcel 2110 from interstate commercial to mixed use, and part of 1701 from mixed use to multifamily. And then the other item is the PUD itself, which is an ordinance to amend the preliminary master development plan, PMDP, to include a rezone from RS40 to CMU PUD for Golden Bear Place plan unit development being located off Beckwith Road 78, parcel 10, 16, 1701, and part of parcel 2110 in the city of Mount Juliet, Wilson County, Tennessee. Motion, I'll second. Okay, 12, the land use and the PUD, I'll set that away, are on the table. And I will just give a brief summarize. This is to move items around and the street layouts and add some land as well to this. So, John, you want to start us off with a summary or any?
I think you nailed it with that. If you look at the two back to back, they moved the age restricted component from area E over more towards the main road, picked up some land to the north that will include the age restricted area. What was the age restricted area E is now townhomes. They had a little parcel on the south end of it that was, I think that's where In and Out was looking, but half of that development area was in the PUD. They ended up removing that overlay off of half of that. So that is more set up, more conducive for future development, I guess. It's a bigger piece of land without a PUD overlay on half of it. But that's basically a change. There's more changes to that probably Public Works could probably talk about too.
Shane, you have anything?
I'm going to defer to our traffic engineers. He's been working on point with a lot of the transportation that came up with the PUD.
Yes, sir.
A lot of this is just kind of cleaning up the original conditions of approval for this PUD and making sure everything is nice and tidy, with Beckwith Business Park also coming in at the same time. Some of the things to highlight, there's an existing condition right now calling for a left turn acceleration lane out of the new collector road. They're calling it Golden Bear Place now. We're gonna remove that from this development, understanding that they are signalizing this intersection, that acceleration lane is not going to be needed under that signalized condition. There is a clause in there that if future development occurs, the signal can be removed, and then the next development that comes in is going to be in charge of reconfiguring the intersection. There is also a condition to provide a southbound right turn deceleration lane on Old Beckwith Road at the main project access roadway that is separate from the southbound through lane. That reads as a southbound right turn lane at a roundabout. Capacity analysis has shown that's not entirely required. And quite frankly, we can't really pick up where that was added in the first place. So that's being proposed to be removed. And I think all the other changes are just related to construction of greenways, and if that in and out site is in charge of picking up the greenway along Golden Bear, as opposed to this project now that the in and out site's no longer in the PUD. And then everything else is as approved.
I got an important question for you. Of these changes that you're talking about, are they codified in this ordinance that's before us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any questions or comments on this? Commissioner Milletti?
Okay, so this has been amended several times, so I'm just confused on where things are. So if you could help me with that. On the original PUD, there was 2 sections for age restricted, one in the back being a possible assisted living, and then which is areas E and D and F. And then area D was the mixed use that included apartments. So now E is where, no. So now F, the age restricted or assisted living, is now included in this additional property that they just purchased.
Correct.
All right, so they've moved that there, which is now F, where F is. And so D is still in the same spot where the mixed use is with the apartments. All right, and then E,
That's townhomes.
yeah, so is that still the age restricted? Because,
Market rate townhomes. is What they,
yeah, because originally what was approved was 2 sections, which was E and F were age restricted.
correct. All the age restricted now is in, it's in the area F. And then area E is market rate townhomes. Area D is mixed use apartments.
Okay, because I saw under one of the conditions that E, the age restricted, would be removed.
Might have been a label or something that was still on there or something. We could remove it. Because area,
Actually, I can speak to that.
area E is definitely the age restricted part. Yeah, go ahead.
That was to correct a drafting error, and it should have been removed before it was final submitted to Planning Commission. Because that area was originally age restricted, there was a layer that wasn't turned off, calling it age restricted, and we were just asking to get that cleaned up. It has since been rectified.
But wasn't that approved at original, that it's age restricted?
Yes, that's one of the changes they're asking for, is to make that no longer age restricted, make that market rate.
Would the number of units be changed?
I don't believe so. I got the changes in here, but I forget what the mixed market rate or the town or the age restricted. Phil might be able
Mr.
to-
Haddix?
Haddix, CSDG. Yeah, so there's 3 changes to the units. All 3 of the unit types have changed. The apartments were approved for 370 units. they were being reduced to 282 units in the mixed use site. So area D. The townhomes were originally approved at age restricted at 103 total units. We are now requesting an increase up to 127 and the age restriction or age restricted designation removed from those. The senior living or assisted living facility was approved for 187 units, and now we're requesting 170. So that reduces your unit count from 660 to 579 for the development. And also removes the age restricted designation from area E.
What is the number of bedrooms in the market rate,
It'll be a mix of, I'm sure, 2 and 3 bedroom units, but
including 3?
yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor?
So Mr. Addix, can you reconfirm those numbers? So you had 579 total from what we were originally from? What was the total original?
660.
So we went down 660. And then the age restriction original to down to now was 187 down to 170?
For the assisted living facility
Assistant living, okay.
or age restricted apartments. Yep, sorry. It was age restricted apartments or senior living facility was 187 approved units. And that has been reduced to 170 units.
And did we increase the size of these units or, because obviously, Commissioner Mullally just, was talking about the sizes. Because I know initially we were talking that we ask every developer to get with the schools to make sure that we don't create any, planning for them, right? We want to make sure that our students have a good place to be able to go to school. And
Yes, sir.
so have we changed those numbers for potential for students now that we've start moving some of these age restriction communities to now open to general, I guess, population, I guess, but best term?
I can rerun it. We can take a second look. My recollection is in this area, no, there was no impact to the schools that this is zoned for. But we can have that data updated for you prior to second reading if you so choose.
Okay. Last question. So the assistant living to the age restriction, are you guys considering those to be the same numbers or are those two different categories?
So we were looking at it as we had a 80, I'm not going to do that math right. 88 unit reduction in the apartments. While we were requesting 24 and then 24 additional in the townhomes and then reducing the age restriction designation from those.
And you guys met all the guidelines for the townhomes. There was no type of
There were some
variances or anything?
material waivers.
But the
for
sizes of the garages, the sizes of the
there was
homes, the driveways, all of those.
We did. Yep.
Is there any variances on those or anything?
Not to my knowledge on the driveway size or the garage size.
All right, because I know this has been a little bit, so I guess I'm gonna go back to staff and just ask that same question. Was there any variances that were given for the townhomes or the parking?
I'm looking.
Okay,
I think the material waivers we requested were only for the age restricted mixed use site. And I think we had some sign waivers for the bowling alley and the self-storage.
well, my only concern is that if we open that back up to general, just buyers, right? Now we're gonna be increasing the parking, we're gonna be increasing more foot traffic. And it sounds like, if that's the case, is there any concerns there from staff for parking?
It doesn't, they didn't request any new waivers with this PUD amendment. So any of the waivers that they got were already with the original approval. No new ones with this amendment from my report here that from a couple weeks ago. And to answer your other question, no waivers on the garages or driveways.
Okay. Well, I'm just trying to think if we are changing these numbers to increase onto just general living from either assistant living or age restricted. Now we've just increased that, those numbers for parking. So is there a set of numbers that you guys want to see in parking that have increased? I mean, like, what are the numbers there? That's really what I'm looking for, I guess, from the developer. I just don't want to get into a situation where we don't have enough parking and now all of a sudden it becomes a nuisance for, for the neighbors, the developers, well, the end users. I was really excited about this project when it first came to me about all the age restriction, assistant living, and it now seems like the bait and switch, the market's changed is what I'm going to hear the excuse, right?
Get the name and address, please.
Mark McDonald, 115 Jackson Boulevard. The age-restricted people is actually more units, I think.
More units?
But they wanted to be up closer to the road from a marketing perspective.
Okay.
So that's why we bought the additional 2.5 acres, reduced the size of the apartments. We are driven by the market, obviously. But, I think they're making a lot of progress on their plans. They look really exciting. They're excited. I think I'm excited about what they're doing. On the market rate, we do have 2-car garages. We do have additional parking at each pad, kind of per the restrictions. We've designed it that way. It may be a good point that we should think about an additional parking lot, and we'll kind of look at that before the next meeting and see if we need some additional parking for guests.
Yes.
So we'll look at that.
Mr. McDonald, I like what you're doing with this plan. I just say I'd like it a lot more if we spelled the city's name correctly. It is a condition? Oh.
Sorry about that. I think Jennifer told me about that a couple times.
Commissioner Justice.
Looking at the numbers here, and I'm a little concerned, the same thing that the Vice Mayor was asking you, as far as the age restricted. And then you said there's an 88 unit reduction. What were the numbers before as far as age restricted, and what are they now? What's the difference in numbers? Just in the age restricted piece.
The age restricted was at 187 and it's now at 170.
Okay. And what about the assisted living?
It's the same. The kind of senior living is all kind of grouped together. The total age restricted was 187, it's now 170.
Okay. So the age restricted and assisted living fall within the same category?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, and what were the numbers before on the open apartment rentals versus now?
370, originally 282 now.
370 before, and now it's 282.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you've actually lowered your numbers.
We have. Yes, sir.
81, I think Jennifer's showing me here.
600 down to 660 down to 579.
Okay, totals.
But they changed it from, if you think about it, they changed it from assisted living, and they increased the numbers. Now you're going to have a general population in there, more foot traffic, more parking.
I guess my question there would be, is there any plan as far as your marketing goes to whether not to do age restricted? Because I've been told by numerous developers that that's a bad idea.
Pardon me?
But to do an age targeted.
And that's what it is. It's a active senior living community.
Okay. So you're not restricting it to those ages, but you are targeting those for your marketing purposes to sell, correct?
I think it is age. It's 55 plus, I think, is the age cutoff. You've got to be 55 plus to qualify to move into these units.
Okay. And that's in the assisted living portion also?
Well, it's not assisted living. This is just active senior. Senior living, active senior living is what they call it, I think.
I'd rather be assisted in my living, personally. Now that I'm a senior. Okay, so your numbers have dropped 81. So percentage points, what is that? Can anybody tell me that knows math that didn't go to Mount Juliet?
What's the question?
What is just percentage
13%
drop in national? So it's a 13% lowering of the residential developer. Okay.
But we increased,
Hmm.
but we increased 13% of more traffic because you've changed the.
Well, I don't know if we got 13%, but I mean, that would be a Todd question. So my question would be, what does that do to the overall traffic plan? And I think the Vice Mayor's correct here that is going to increase the number, the amount of traffic, the impact, but to what degree?
CSDG provided us an updated traffic analysis that showed there was a reduction in traffic. However, give me one moment to track that down. There were a couple issues with it that I'm working out with them. Nothing major, but they were including properties that are no longer included in the PUD.
As far as the impacted area?
The original traffic study was master planned when the Lowry property was still included. That was when it was in the planning stage.
Right.
And that property was still included in the redone traffic analysis.
Huh?
But they are showing roughly a reduction in 7,500 trips a day, total reduction.
And what is that percentage was?
Doesn't make any sense. 7,000 trips for 81 homes.
Well, there was some smaller reductions throughout the site as well, I believe, but Joe would need to speak on that.
Yeah, it more had, the reduction more had to do with some of the additional uses throughout the PUD. Now that they're better defined, Lowry piece is not coming alongside of this one. So we're really able to fine tune the study. Y'all know the person who did the original study for us. So, and that's it. I mean, we've been going back and forth with him. Mr. Trevette, I can show you on the number of students. I ran some quick math. So we reduced the apartments by 88 units.
Okay.
So if you take the total 127 townhome units minus the 88, that's 39 additional units, right?
Mhm.
So 39 times 0.323 is what we use estimating the student count. So that equates to 13 additional students.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, so Area B is coming out, and that's where a restaurant was designated. Is that right?
Oh, I'm going to defer to staff somewhat. This was a discussion point between us and staff and the developer on the in and out site, whether the triangle be included in the PUD, not in the PUD. When you see that site, you will notice that there's a second parcel to the south that was included in the site development plan, but not in our PUD. Believe the consensus was it would make it easier on staff moving forward if we removed that from our PUD. So it was like zone.
And the
coming through.
applicant.
Yeah.
Not only easier on us.
Right. Yeah.
But
All
yeah,
of
that's why. Because they were going to need both those parcels, and one of them had a PUD overlay and one of them did not. So if they wanted to add to the PUD, they'd have to do another PUD amendment like this.
So that looks like a area for a pretty good sized restaurant. If you take that out, what would be the chances of a nice restaurant being moved somewhere else in the PUD?
Same zone.
Huh?
The same zoning. And
But I
then
mean, where would it go? Is it,
they're still going right there.
John, correct me if I'm wrong. Part of the discussion we had about removing it is because they can come in as a straight zone and they didn't need to be in the PUD.
That use is permitted by right in the zoning that's already there.
You're going to need to get a little closer.
Oh,
Turn
that
mine a
unit-
little
that-
closer to Mike.
That zoning permits that use by right, so they wouldn't have to do anything except submit a site plan.
so what are they doing? Submitting separate? They're just not in the PUD? All right, so you had said initially, when this was approved, the apartments, because I asked this question, they were 1 and 2 bedroom. But now you're saying the apartments include 3 bedroom? There's still 1 and 2 on the mixed use apartments?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but you did say on the townhomes, it includes 3 bedroom.
Yes.
All right, so when this was approved, I liked it because it was age restricted and it wasn't going to have much of an impact on the schools. So I had discussions with the public on this and they liked that better because it didn't necessarily impact the schools. I do think it's going to impact the schools now if you open that up for the market rate townhomes to include 3 bedroom. So, honestly, I'm not sure the public would be happy with that. I personally am not happy with it. I approved it based on the age restricted. And when you said the age restricted was coming off, but it kind of was still on there, but weren't you talking about area F, which is now where the assisted living is? Wasn't that where you were referring to rather than E?
Yeah, so Area F, part of the discussion with the developers there was they needed to be closer to the front of the development, closer to Beckwith Road. So
Mhm.
Area F shifted to the front, some additional acreage being added to the PUD. And I agree with you, based on what we just looked at and discussed, 13 additional students. I think everybody's well aware the school system has a new school under construction up north on 109 they're installing erosion control today on
Elementary.
Pike for their new elementary. That's right.
So what are your plans for the back part of E?
We really were able to preserve a lot of it as open space, and that is some of where the additional townhome units are being placed.
All right, that's my biggest hesitation. Because I like the plan. I want to see it move forward, but I'm not excited about the market rate townhomes.
Any other questions or comments? All right. All in favor of 12, the land use and the PMD 12M, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? So that passes on first reading by a vote of 3-1. And with that concludes our business as according to our agenda. I would make this 2 quick announcements. Our next meeting scheduled for November 11th falls on Veterans Day. Being a public holiday, City Hall will be closed and we will not be meeting that day. On 11/25, there will be swearing in ceremonies for the winners of the District 1, District 3, and Mayor's race. So that will be held on November 25th. And with seeing no other business before the Board of Commissioners, without objection, we are adjourned.